Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the It Takes a Village podcast. I'm Ashley, your host. This is where the struggles are real, the callings are heavy, the kids are sticky. We come together because it takes a village, and this is your tribe. Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm going to be sharing with you my experience from living in a 2,300 square foot home to downsizing to a 1,300 square foot apartment. That's right, I'm not exaggerating. I'm talking about downsizing from a house to an apartment. But why? They said it'll be crowded. They said it'll be awful. They said, or everybody who he told said, man, I wish I could do that. So I am sharing with you some things. I think 8 things that I learned from downsizing. Here we go. Number 1, I don't need so much space. I always grew up thinking that I needed the space. I felt really in my home, and I think this is just because of the environment. I felt really suffocated. I felt like there was no place for me to go to retreat, to be by myself, to be left alone. And so as I got older, I kept thinking bigger is better. I just need more space. I need to have this area to myself or I'm going to explode. And so when I was moving in with friends or when I was looking at a place with my husband, it was like I needed enough space. And the realization is that I didn't need all that space. Being in a 1,300 square foot apartment now, I'm like, why was I wasting all that space that nobody could use? I didn't need that to survive. What I needed to do was work on stuff with me is what I needed to do. So that's the realization. If you feel like you need space because you need to roam in your home or you need to have a retreat area, there are plenty enough places to retreat. There are plenty enough places to have your own time in a smaller space. I promise you. The second thing I learned is that close quarters equals more connection. I remember in our home where my kids would have their bedrooms, we had this hallway that was long and went to their 2 rooms and the guest bathroom. And then, the living room, the dining room, the kitchen was one big open space in the middle of the home. And that is where the kids always wanted to be. They would never go off and play in their rooms. They would never want to be down there. And for those people who you feel like you want to have separation, you feel like you want to have space, I think layout is everything. So with close quarters here in our home, we are around each other so much. We do life together so much more because honestly, in our big home, they were trying to be around us anyways. But this just makes it to where, of course, like I said in the first lesson, you will have space to retreat, but at the same time, this really gives you the realization of who you are and how you can step up because you have people around you in this small area. So you need to deal with your stuff. And you need to be better about the way that you handle it. It just makes you have a big self realization about how you are and what, how to better yourself. And the truth is that our kids play in their rooms now. In this, they share a room in our apartment and they go off and play in it because it's so close to us still. With the door open, they can see us, they can hear us. And so I feel like it allows them to feel a part of the community, a part of our family without being so far away. But I love that we're doing life together. It gives us an opportunity to talk, to hear them play. We hear the conversations that they're having when they have friends over in our apartment. There's a lot of connecting that goes on in our home that I feel like we were missing in a bigger home because there was so much more space to be separated, to be divided, to retreat. And I really love that in this close area, there's more snuggles, there's more time, there's more observing that you can do. It's just a really good experience. And like I said, even though you're in a small space, alone time is still possible. The third lesson that I learned is the realization of how much stuff, quote unquote, we really had. You would not believe, I think we took 3 trucks on our last day. We were in our last day that we had to be out of our house. There was 3 trucks that was sent to the Goodwill. Like we just were like, get rid of it. We don't even want it. I don't know why we have it. It really forces you to look at all the things, and you don't realize how much the little things add up that you just throw to the side, or that you throw in the garage, or that you hold on to because it might be useful, next year or something. And that is so ridiculous. If you are holding on to all the things, it stresses you out, man. Like there's clutter, there's no doubt about it. It stresses me out. I don't know if it stresses you out. I know some people can live with like a messy desk and all those things. But I wonder if you live with it because you don't want to deal with it, and it doesn't necessarily get on your nerves. And so you're just like, meh. But when you go through it, you're just like, man, like all this stuff was really weighing me down. Like, stuff really does have a weight on you, literally and mentally. Like to move, it was a lot of work to carry a lot of stuff over. Is it worth it? Is it beautiful? Is it useful to me? Do I love it? Does it have meaning? Those are the things that I ask myself when getting rid of stuff. Am I going to want it 80 years from now, or 30 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Am I going to care about it? Am I ever going to use it? Am I going to look at it? Is it something that my grandkids would want? All these papers that, schoolwork and stuff, like, is it worth carting? That's the word. Is it worth carting from house to house? Like, these are the things that you realize as you're going through your stuff. Man, like I am really hanging on to stuff that doesn't matter, that I don't need. It's not functional. It's too much. We have too much. And it's so funny because when we went through our kids' playroom, we let them go through it because I did not want to be a mom who goes into their playroom and starts bagging stuff up and says like, we need to get rid of this. I'm going to bag it all up. I asked them, we gave them each a trash bag. And we asked them if to leave the toys out of the bag that they truly want, that they really love, that they think that they're going to enjoy for a long time, and that they just really want to keep. And then everything else needs to go in the bag, and we will donate it. And you would be surprised at what they chose to leave out versus what they chose to give away, which just goes to show that kids don't really need all that many toys. That just like we know, when they have a birthday party and they get 50 bajillion boxes and presents, it's like they're over it in a week and they only play with like one or two things out of all those things. So when you give your kids the opportunity to choose, I think you'll be really surprised at also how much they don't really need. So the fourth lesson that I learned is that the upgrade mentality is really, really dumb. I think in society today, we grow up thinking like you go to school, you get the job, you get the house, or you get the apartment, you find the spouse, you get the house, and then you get the car, and then you get a bigger house, you get a better car, you get a bigger car or whatever, and it just keeps going. Like you feel like society tells us you have to do better and you have to do bigger each time, and that is absolutely wrong. Like when I look back, I'm like, why did we even do that? That was the dumbest decision that we could have ever made, was to splurge on this house when we were young and we were building a family. It was unnecessary. The idea of moving bigger is not always better. We had so many friends that were like, man, we wish we could do that. We're so envious of you to get rid of everything and, start over, clean slate. And it's like, well, why, what's stopping you? What is holding us back from getting rid of this stuff? Like, it's just stuff. And most of it's just junk, to be honest. And, I think it was I love this experience and the opportunity that we got to have with our kids being little and them sharing a room. They grew up. Our daughter, 7 years of her life had her own room, and our son, 4 years of his life had his own room. And then they had to share a room. And I thought it was a really good opportunity for them to see, and for them to experience a different lifestyle. And it kind of takes away that sense of entitlement of, the same for them. Like, it doesn't have to get bigger and better. And life is just as great in a small space as it is in a big space or a regular space. And it really makes you value just anything. Like, it makes you value being in a home together no matter what size it is. It makes you value just the idea that sounded so cliche of, home is where the heart is, because it's so, so true. And so don't let that pressure of society that says you have to do better and bigger every time, because that is so much crap. Let me just say that it's so much crap. It's not true. And I think that we need to squash it. We need to get rid of it. We need to throw it out the window and move on to my lesson number 5. And that is that spaces get used. When you have a small space, you will utilize that space like no other. The way that you set it up, the way that you're thoughtful about it, every place has a purpose. There is no part of our house that isn't being used. Versus in our 2,300 square foot home, there were lots of spaces that were just like empty. Like we paid for this space and we're doing nothing with it. It's holding up a wall and that's about it. Or I have to vacuum in, that's about it. So when I think about the dining rooms that we have in our homes that never get used, well, I either should have turned that into something really functional and make use of my money that I spent on this room that doesn't get used and that I won't let anybody get dirty. Or maybe it's possible that I don't need space for that room. Maybe it's possible that my family just doesn't need it. Like it's a waste of money or it's a waste of space. In our apartment, every space is literally used. The living room is our living room for us to enjoy movies together. We snuggle up, we watch TV. I push the tables aside. I do yoga. My kids and I, work out in that room. We also have some of their toys in that room. So we're playing together. There's mess all over the floor, which sounds crazy. I thought that it would drive me nuts to not have a separate toy room. And I was blown away by how opposite that is. And then they're in their rooms. They're fully utilizing their rooms. They're playing in them. They're living in them. And we are in our master room is so much smaller, but yet like every space is being used. When we made the switch to this room, we're like, why did we need all that space? I remember in our room, in our house, there were like walls that I would just have stuff like piled near because we didn't know what to do with it, or like we didn't have any sort of organization set up or whatever. And it was just like space, like those awkward spaces that you can't really use. And in our apartment, everything fits. Like we don't have more than we need and we don't need more than we have. And it's just insane. And so when you have a smaller house, just be aware that all your spaces will get used. All your money will be put to good use and it'll be wonderful. My lesson for number 6 is that fear is not the boss and plans change. I think that so much of what we live off of is fear of what if, or fear that you can't be a 4-person family and live in an apartment. Or that, just like that whole mentality of you got to get bigger and better every time. Like if you go smaller, it's like you're taking a step backwards and people are going to wonder what's wrong with you or what's going on or that you're doing something wrong, or you feel like you're doing something wrong because that mentality says you have to get bigger and better every time. Then when you go smaller and economical or, logical, then you feel like you're failing. You feel like it's one of those things that you're supposed to do when something bad happens. And that's further from the truth. And if fear is holding you back from being able to travel or put your kids through private school, like maybe the mortgage on your house is so much that you can't do the things that you want to do, or all the, the repairs on your home or whatnot, or the time. I think one of the biggest things is that we don't have to mow the lawn. And I'll talk about that later. But why are you letting fear hold you back from something that is so, like minuscule? Like you don't have to be a part of this idea, like I said, of, bigger is better. And I don't think that you want to let fear have control over your life or fear make the decisions for you. Do what you think is best and do it because you truly, truly want it and you believe in it and you feel freedom in it, you feel joy in it, and you feel life in it and all those things. And also, I just love the idea of, I feel like I'm conquering a dinosaur when I can say plans change, we're doing the best for our family. Like I didn't imagine living in an apartment after a home. Our initial plan was to build a house. And so a bigger house, or like a house for entertaining. And then we went smaller. And then I realized how great it was and how, who's to say that we're doing any less or that we're any less because we went smaller instead of bigger. And I think that sense of freedom and letting it go, and it was really good for our family. It was really good for us and me personally. So lesson number 7 for me was that you learn, or at least I learned, what matters to me, like what truly, really matters. And initially when we got our house, it was like we went to these places that we thought we had to go, like these furniture stores that everybody else had gone to. And it was like we needed real furniture. And we didn't even think about IKEA at the time. Like I don't know why that didn't even cross our mind, but it also came across as like cheap. And just to let you know, if you have a house full of IKEA, you're freaking awesome and you're very smart, because not only one have they, I think, upgraded a lot of the stuff that they've done, but 2, you're not spending a lot of money on all these things. Like we would care about, if our kids scratch this and it would upset us, or like, hey, don't do that to the table, or don't touch this, don't jump on that, like, because it costs so much, because we knew in our heads this couch was like, X amount of dollars, and heaven forbid somebody spill something on it or a kid scratch it or whatever. And now with our apartment, that's what we did, is we started over from scratch, and we were like, okay, what really matters to us? And it's that our family has fun, that there's a lot of love in our home, that it feels welcoming, and that we're like, there's less stuff. And then, so we just like totally did our whole place in IKEA. And because it's not heavy and bulky, it doesn't weigh you down, it's not huge and clunky. We don't care as much. Now, like, I mean, obviously we do care, because, money is money. So we're going to say like, hey, keep your shoes off the couch. But at the end of the day, like, the damages that can be done to IKEA furniture is very minimal for the amount it would cost to replace it. You know what I'm saying? So it was very eye-opening also, just to have a clean slate, to get rid of everything and then think about, okay, what are the things that I really want to hang on to? Like, is this worth really carrying from house to house to house? Is this really worth a box that I'm going to have to tote from here to there? And then also just the fact of realizing that it doesn't, like, a house doesn't make you, like, it doesn't define your family. It just has no impact on you and your family unit itself. Now, maybe it's limiting for some, because maybe you want like all these animals. Well, obviously in an apartment, you can't have an animal farm. But, it really gets to the root of you of, well, why? Like, why does it bother me so bad to have to downsize? Or why does it bother me so bad to have to get rid of this stuff? Or why would it bother me, and really dig deep. And so I think that this whole journey from basically becoming a minimalist, because we have very minimal things, very minimal furniture, and it really makes you look inward and be like, okay, what really matters to me? Does a fancy house and fancy cars and things looking very nice and very elegant, does that matter to me? And if it does then that's good. Like, just be true to who you are. Don't be about something because everybody else is about it, which is, for me, that was the case. Like, it was that I had this big place, and but we felt totally disconnected to it. We had all this land, and we just weren't in love with it, and we weren't in love with the way we were living. And we love to travel, and we love to do all these things. We love to be outside. And so our house and our home wasn't really a reflection of, gathering and warmth and being able to get up and go and, all these things. And so I think lesson number 7 was a huge deal for me. As you can tell, I'm losing my voice more and more as we go on, but I'm going to finish with number 8, and that is the sense of freedom. Y'all, I don't know how much of a big deal is like not having to spend a whole day mowing the lawn. If you guys have a big yard, or if your husband makes a big shebang about doing the yard work, like, it can be really annoying. Or even if you have to do it, because I would do it. So that way my husband wouldn't be out there all day on Sunday edging and mowing, because then we're just hanging out waiting around for him to get done, and it's all day. And so I would do one day in the afternoon, like edging or weed eating, and then I would mow it like a different day. Or if I had extra time, I would do both, and I would try to knock it out before the weekend. But still, like, that takes up time for me being able to work on the podcast, or work on graphics for the podcast, or answer emails, or all those things. And so that I really love that with an apartment, like you don't have to worry about upkeep with the yard. You don't have to worry about water bill, like all these things, these extra things, because it's taken care of. You don't have to worry about cleaning your own pool because they have a pool and they do it for you. And hopefully they do a good job, like obviously if you're going to downsize, you got to look into how they keep up their building and their, their things. But, I really think that if you're looking for a sense of freedom, like to get up and go, to be able to spend money in other ways, like even though you are having a mortgage, you're not spending money on landscaping or yard keeping if you pay a gardener or a house cleaner because your house is, you just can't keep up with all the nooks and crannies and all these things. Downsizing really gives you that sense of freedom of like financial freedom, as well as the ability to get up and go, as well as the ability to not have to do all those house things. Like, if something breaks, you got to fix it. You got to repair it. Here, you just call the maintenance man and it's their responsibility, not yours. And so that would be my last tip for downsizing, or at least not my tip, I should say, but like the thing that I've learned. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I am able to look at this because we've been in this apartment for a while. I think we moved in November and it is now June. And so it wasn't that long. We actually plan on being in our apartment from a year to 2 years. And recently, randomly, came upon this house that was for sale. And it was super cheap for what it was. It's definitely going to be a fixer-upper. It's something that I never thought that I would look for in a house. But I'm going to talk to you guys about that next because I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, like she's a hypocrite. She just told me about all these great things about downsizing and now she's moving back into a house. And so I'm going to give you another episode about how this process from our first house to an apartment has impacted our decision in getting into a new house and what was different, like what my thoughts are now approaching buying a house and how it's completely different than my first go around of buying a house and how I look at what buying a house is all about and what I look for in a house. So I always keep it real and honest with you guys, and I hope that you enjoy this episode. I hope that maybe it encourages you to like go through the garage a little bit. Maybe it encourages you to purge your closet. I don't know. It's summer, so maybe it's the right time. Maybe it's not. Or maybe you're just happy with all the junk and you don't care. You're just like, screw it. I'm going to leave it. I'm not even going to mess with it. Like but I hope you guys have an awesome day. Thanks for listening. I will catch you next time.